Let's talk about it with
Lindsay Knapp.
Yay!
And our bestie,
Elise Williams. Figuring out life as we go.
Right, yeah. Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So how are things going, Lindsay? Do you want to catch our listeners and viewers on all things Knapp
related? No,
yeah.
all things are going good. We're just alive and kicking, mostly kicking. As I like to say, the patriarchy is not going to burn itself down. So
I wish it would.
So we're back at it with our bullshit and doing all the things, planning a drag show, an amateur hour drag show. So that's exciting, letting new artists new local artists try out their stuff. So
I think that's amazing. Yeah, I saw it's a drag workshop. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we'll see how many, if we can get some more locals to come out of their shells and perform. Our closet performers who are maybe wanting to take it for a test drive and see what it's like out in real life. So
it's like that show We Are Here, when the three drag queens go into those small towns and they put people in drag and they realize oh, this is a lot of fun.
It is, yeah. It's just so much fun. Who wouldn't want to get dressed up and start dancing and lip syncing to
anything?
Yeah, to anything, to your favorite song. Just let loose. Being a character for a few minutes, not have to actually be yourself, or maybe you're actually about to be your most authentic self.
Yeah, your enhanced self.
Yeah, self 2.0. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I get ready and I put makeup on, I blast my feel good music, and it just feels like I'm in my enhanced self, and I feel I feel more animated, I feel glamorous, but I just feel oh fabulous, I'm great. And then when I finish, I'm like, damn, sis, you look good. I'm just yes. And I love it. So it sounds like a great time. We should if people are comfortable, record some a transformation or something.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Those cool TikToks where they throw the shoe or something, or they throw their brush and then it's oh look.
Yeah. No, I like that. We'll have to do that.
Okay.
Because I love that.
That's because June is coming up, Pride Month.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be here before you know it, and we'll just be rocking it out.
Yes. Do we have anything planned for Pride Month besides the drag workshop?
Yeah, we've got a few other things planned. We're doing, we're tabling at some Pride events locally. We're doing Pride, game nights. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember all these other things. We're hosting a couple fundraisers. We're doing a garage sale for a bunch of donations we've received.
Okay.
We're going to be selling Stonewall themed riot bricks that are going to be painted with different cheeky sayings and rainbows and things for people to buy.
That's a cool fundraiser. Yeah.
So come buy a brick from us.
Don't throw the brick, but you can buy the brick.
Yeah, you could throw the brick. Just
not
at your own. Don't at your own peril.
Yeah, just don't damage property with it.
Yeah, or another human.
Yes, that's what I mean. Don't throw the brick and cause property damage or personal damage. Yeah. Nice. So what brings us here today, Lindsay?
So today on Let's Talk About It, I was thinking about talking about trauma, and then in particularly how that overlaps with yoga and how yoga can be used to help kind of regulate your nervous system and all that kind of stuff.
Good.
Because your nervous system is wired like branches of a tree, and then when you experience a traumatic event, those branches get pruned. Now those branches can regrow, but what we're doing in yoga is we're creating the conditions for those branches to regrow. And I think some people might think that yoga might be, pulling your leg over your head or kind of getting into all these different postures, or that you need to be flexible.
Or looking cute in your yoga pants.
Right? Or you need to have a certain kind of body to do it, or you need to be chanting and all the things. But yoga, in its very, basic essence. Yoga means union, and you're talking about in yoga the union of the mind and the body. And there's many limbs of yoga, and only one of those limbs are the asanas, which are the postures. And so when we're doing asanas or doing postures, we're just using the body as a vehicle, or the breath as a vehicle, to start to calm and reset the nervous system. And as that's occurring, and we're creating conditions for those branches to regrow, you're able to achieve that union which is kind of the goal in yoga, is to calm the body or calm the mind, and in this case with the asanas, using the body is the way to do that.
So it's so interesting. So yesterday I taught a yin and restore class, and one of the ladies closing the studio, or working at the studio, she stayed and we talked, and she talked about how she was a nurse during the pandemic and stuff, and how she's just not ready to go back into nursing. And she just talked about how stressful it was during the pandemic. I mean, she was in it, right?
Yeah.
And something she mentioned that resonated with me is she was just a lot of us don't have good coping skills for stress or trauma, which is something I read in an audiobook called, I'm gonna get to it, and talked about how because in this book the author talked about addiction, and how people who are addicted and stuff like that, their coping is the alcohol or the drugs or whatever, because that's it helps them cope with whatever trauma they have going on or whatever triggers that trauma. And I thought about how yoga really helped me in a lot of times, because that was my healthy coping.
Yeah.
Whenever I was having a bad day or super stressful or just mentally not good, I would just go to a yoga class. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I could just be on my mat and just be. And coming in, I felt anxious, and then leaving, I felt less anxious and more calm, because it's just that hour or 75 minutes of just not being in your head, focusing on your breathing, meditation, the shavasana, of course, and just allowing your body kind of to recalibrate, which is
right. Yeah, and being so in the present moment. And to take a little, since you brought up addiction, we'll take a little side quest, because as we're threading that through trauma, addiction is largely has been categorized, as a disease. Alcoholism is a disease. Drug addiction is a disease. And I just like to take a little reframe on that. And the disease is actually the trauma, right? And that the addiction is the symptom. If I'm using a substance of any kind, I'm in all likelihood doing that because I've experienced a traumatic event and I'm trying to self-soothe.
Yes.
So I may be drinking a lot, so that way I don't, if I have anxiety, I might drink a lot so that way it doesn't feel like my heart is beating out of my chest all the time.
Yeah.
Because, that the alcohol is a depressant, and so, and even if you go to the doctor, they're going to put you, if you're going to get on meds for anxiety, they're going to put you on some form of depressant to kind of bring you down, right? So in my mind, I like to give it that reframe.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people, when they categorize humans with addiction, a better way to look at it is a human who hasn't quite yet learned how to process their trauma.
Yes.
Right? And so they're trying, but they are trying to figure it out. So when I see someone with addiction, I see someone who's in it, in it to win it. They're trying to figure out a way out. They're not somebody who's resigned to their fate of experiencing a traumatic event. They're how can I
escape it?
How can I figure this out? And they haven't quite figured out the map on how to do it yet. And so, and as we know, that can get destructive over time. But as we are, as folks may want to try yoga to get into that, my journey into yoga was a weird one because I absolutely hated yoga, and there was I was very traumatized by a lot of things, and the idea of sitting by myself on my mat for 60 minutes was like the most horrifying idea you could possibly give me. And then with sitting next to a bunch of other people who are pulling their legs over their head and the instructor's cueing, too fast, or I'm not understanding what they're cueing. I don't even know the names. I don't speak Sanskrit, right? Like I have no idea what's happening. But my husband kept trying to get me into doing it because he could see how, how my traumatic experiences were affecting my nervous system and my day-to-day life, but that was just not something I personally was vibing with. So initially, for the first couple of years into me attempting yoga, it would actually trigger me more. I didn't want to do it. I couldn't sit with myself. And then at least for me, I tried hot yoga on a whim with like a Groupon. I was like, well, let me try this. This might be a little better. And
sorry, I'm trying to find this book because it's like bugging me that I don't remember. Oh,
you're gonna find it.
I'm gonna find it.
I believe in you.
Thank you. But no, I don't want you to think I'm not listening.
No.
I am. It's
I know
just,
you are.
I'm trying to find this book because I'm just like, what is the name? But you're totally right. Like, at first it's like going into a studio can be intimidating, right? And it can be like, I don't know, these people might not be my vibe. Like, what's going on here? But what happened once you started doing it?
Yeah, so when I first tried hot yoga, it was like extremely intense. So it was just like I had to use every bit of my mind and body to not pass out for that 60 or 90 minutes. But because of that, since I had to like so intently focus, I felt great afterwards, and it was really my ability to completely be present in the present moment and not think about anything else for that amount of time that kind of got me hooked. And so then I still couldn't do like non-hot yoga for a while, so I would just do hot yoga, but I could only do it like once a week because it was so intense it would like wipe me out. But over time I was able to do yoga without heat, and then do different kinds of yoga, do slower more restorative classes, and I was able to learn over time. I was able to train myself to sit with myself, because I'm like, I ain't sitting by myself. I know what goes on in this mind. I can't sit with myself for 60 minutes. I know me. Me ain't cool.
Me is cool.
Well, me is cool now.
When you started doing restorative classes, which one did you prefer, yin yoga or restorative yoga?
So for folks who don't know what that is, yin yoga is like where you're holding postures for maybe like 3 to 5 minutes, where you're really trying to open up different parts of your body, so it can be uncomfortable but not painful. So like when you're like maybe doing a really deep like hip opener, you're noticing you're a little uncomfortable, then the hip starts to open and you get a little bit of relief, but then you go into a different level of discomfort as it opens up more. And then restorative is you're still holding it postures for a long time, but it's much more in like a I'm going to snuggle and take a nap kind of a way. So there's not as much of an opening. It's a much softer pose. I'm not sure which one I tried first, which one I liked more. I think I probably tried a yin class first before a restorative. But by the time I did that, I'd already transitioned out of hot classes into being able to do non-hot classes. And I think that restorative is good for when you kind of want to, where you need more rest. Yeah. And where you're trying to find a way to get rest in your mind and your body. And I think yin is a good way when you're trying to, it seems restful because you're doing it for a while, but I think yin is better for when you're trying to do more work on yourself, and you're like, so it's actively restful. Yin is very active, even though you're not moving so much.
Oh yeah, it's like because you're stretching the ligaments more in like the joints and stuff like that. But depending on the classes you take, you'll probably use like less props and you're like on the mat and stuff. So it's like you're getting more of an intense body stretch, but it's not, it shouldn't be painful. And then restore, like you said, it's like active napping.
Active, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I liked is, some folks call it eye rest or yoga nidra, but you're kind of listening. For that type of yoga, you're actually not doing anything. You're just laying or sitting, and you're listening to someone talk to you. And they could be. It's kind of like a guided meditation. But some of the ones that I found helpful, particularly early on, is where they were doing like a body scan. So where they're just bringing your awareness to different parts of your body, and you're kind of just sitting in that space for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. I found that to be helpful because, well, for a number of reasons, because then you're starting to learn how to calm your mind without movement. You're also not having to sit alone by yourself. Somebody's always there talking and guiding you. And so there's a lot of good things you can find on YouTube and stuff, so you can, pull up, yoga. If you search yoga nidra or body scan, you can find a lot of good stuff. But I also like those because I could do them like if I was having a stressful day at work. I could just go out to my car. I could, plop the seat back and just listen to it for 20 minutes, and I would get
that
I'd get like a 20-minute reset, and you can do that as many times as you want throughout the day. But I would do it like before bed or on my lunch or whenever I was starting to feel like anxious, and I'm not in a position to go do a hot yoga class or to do much of anything, but I could go sit in my car for 15 minutes and listen to a body scan. And then for those moments, I would just be in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, there's nothing else going on. So you're not worried about the past of what you did or what you didn't do or what happened to you. And you're not in the future worried about what will happen or what might happen. But you're just in the now thinking about your body. And as you're doing that, your body starts to find different forms of rest, even when you're maybe not in a restful state. So it's kind of like letting the monkey mind run amok for a minute, because as your thoughts are kind of just going back and forth and boom, 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 and if we're calling it like the little monkey, I always think of the monkey in Homer Simpson's mind.
Oh
with
my
the
God,
clouds.
that's what I was thinking too.
That's what I always think.
Have you ever watched Kids Next Door? Oh my! There's this episode on Kids Next Door. I just remember it's like this guy, and it's a cartoon that was big in the early 2000s. But yeah, he's like Mr. Chimps or Mr. Chips or something like that, and the monkey's just causing like a ruckus, just That's what I thought of that, or like the the symbols.
Yeah, and so you can't get rid of the monkey in your mind, but you can give it a job. Okay. And so the job, when you're listening to like, let's say a body scan, the job you're giving it is whatever you're listening to. When it's saying bring your awareness to your arm, to your leg, you're giving the monkey a place to focus, so it stops clanking the cymbals for a minute. Okay. And so as we're starting to kind of befriend the monkey in our mind, it's really befriending them, because I think what can happen is that we start to blame that monkey for being a crazy person or doing this or doing that, or causing us to be anxious, or we're trying not to be anxious, and then we get anxious, then we're mad that we are anxious. So we've like got layers of of madness at ourselves. So instead of doing that, just accepting, all right, well, I'm anxious. My little monkey's anxious. Now let me give the monkey a different job.
So it can calm down.
Right. Yeah. And so then maybe I start with thinking about my breath. Or maybe I start to count backwards from 50 to 1. And counting backwards instead of forwards, because counting forward can be very like automatic. Like you can just do it. Most people can count to 50 pretty easily, right? If you're over the age of like 5. But counting backwards requires a little bit more thought. Yeah. Because that's not something most people do naturally on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Like you might count backwards from 10 pretty easy, but maybe not from like 75 down to 0 or 50 down from 0. You have to, what number was
more
I on?
concentration, yeah.
And that again kind of brings you into that present moment. And then when you're in that present moment, that's when you have the opportunity to create these new neural pathways.
Okay. I like how you segued back to the neural pathways.
Because that's all we're doing in yoga is we're creating conditions for these branches to grow.
Yes.
Right? And you can't actually heal some parts of you until those branches grow. So some people use talk therapy as a tool to work through their trauma, right? Which is a great tool.
Okay.
But sometimes it doesn't get you the whole way there.
Yeah.
You know, and they just, like, the client will be like, it's working, but there's this piece missing. Because at some point, as you process trauma through the mind, you have to process it through the body. You've got to finish that loop.
Yeah.
And so some people maybe start with talk therapy, but some people may start in the body and end with talk therapy, or they do them together, you know, so like they're extremely complementary, but at some point you absolutely have to process it through the body, and it's trying to figure out what that looks like for each person. And so some people need a dynamic yoga practice, like I did at first, because like there's no way they're going to sit. They cannot sit still.
They can't like start with a restorative class.
Right. It's going to be more triggering for them. But then some people, though, it's the opposite. Like they actually need a slower, gentler practice, and then maybe over time would like to work up to something more dynamic. So it's kind of figuring out what that is. And what I call the yoga is when I'm teaching a yoga class, I'm teaching for the end. Because it's not until the end of class that the nervous system is actually going to grow. The nervous system isn't growing until you get into that shavasana. And so the whole class, I call it shaking the sillies out. I'm convincing the body to stop thinking about all the things, trying to convince the mind to stop thinking about all the things, so that way I can get to the end. And then as I'm kind of watching the participants, I can kind of see how jittery they are, how calm and relaxed their nervous systems are, and to see if I've created the conditions at the end for them to grow.
Yeah.
And so then, like as before, when I was trying to say that you can't actually process things until the nervous system grows, like when you meet somebody, sometimes we all meet somebody and you're just like, they are not acting at the age that they are, so to speak. Like if I meet somebody in their 40s, but maybe they've got the emotional capacity of like an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
For one, I know that's when their traumatic event occurred.
Yep.
Right? It occurred at that age that they're presenting at. But two, they're not going to actually be able, they don't have the neural receptors to even behave in the manner that you may be expecting them to behave. You know, so there's only so much that they can do, right? So it's like, if you're thinking of your neural receptors in a different way, like a muscle, like you can't expect somebody to, you know, curl 30 pounds if they can't curl 10 pounds. You know, so it's building that muscle, building that nervous system, so that way it can carry more loads.
Yeah.
So somebody who can handle a certain amount of chaos in their life, you know, maybe like a handful size, you know, another person can handle basketball size, but it's because their receptors are just longer and stronger, that larger amount of chaos or trauma that they can experience on the outside after they've processed their own has just grown.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like folks to think about too is that as you're kind of like going through this process, and you know, maybe if you're trying yoga and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, the idea that you won't ever be like depressed or anxious, there will never be a time where you lose those sensations.
Yeah.
So like there will always be a time where, you know, like if you have anxiety, where your chest starts to go.
Yeah.
Yoga and all those things will help with that, but that doesn't mean you'll never have a panic attack again. But
it's just when that panic attack does come, and the more you do it, like those neural pathways, you know, like, oh, let me just go to my car real quick and do yoga nidra right now to calm down, or let me just meditate, or like you can think more and process more, like let me just remember to breathe properly, you know. Like,
your relationship with that symptom changes, because some of these symptoms, I just want to like, you know, maybe cue in people's mind, they actually don't go away. Some of them lessen, but then some of them remain, but your relationship with them changes. So sometimes you get an email or you have an experience, and that's you start to get like a triggering sensation in your body, right? And you've already done a lot of work. Let's say you've done a lot of processing, but when things like that happen, what you can do is you just kind of go back and say, you know, I'm noticing, you know, whatever this coming up is a tool that my body and my brain and my monkey is using to let me know that previously trouble maybe have been afoot, right? So it's an alarm system going off, and so then I just go back to myself and really, to be honest, thank my body. Thank you for giving me that alarm, but I don't need it this time. Aww. I'm actually okay.
Yeah.
You know, so there's these little alarm systems in your body that are designed really beautifully to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Right? So like if you experience something traumatic, that memory is going to stay probably in your frontal lobe. You're going to remember the smells, you know, the sounds. You're going to remember different things, and your body is like giving you maybe flashbacks of that event to remind you, hey man, if this happens, like we don't want this to happen again. We're going to want to keep you alive. And then sometimes even after you've processed that event, other littler things will kind of bubble to the top. But if they do, again, you're not a failure. It is totally okay. It's an alarm system. Your body loves you so much.
Yeah.
You know?
It's done all these things to like protect you.
That it's trying to just make you the best. And I think sometimes we interpret it differently, like, God damn it, I'm having another panic attack. Why am I having a panic? It was just an email. It was just a phone call. It was just a text message. You know, like, why is this triggering me? And just, you know, maybe again with a reframing it just to say, all right, well, thank you, body. Yeah. That was kind of you. Yeah. I didn't need that alarm. Or that alarm, we'll put that away. That's, you know, it's not for today. But that's just something I like people to think about, because I think a lot of people beat themselves up, you know, even after they've done a lot of work, you know, or even if they've just done a little work and they still are getting some symptoms, just, you know, giving yourself a little bit of space and a little compassion, and knowing that your body is actually just trying to take care of you, and thanking it for that sometimes, instead of beating yourself up for it.
So when that like sense of panic comes, like, oh my God, just be like, thank you, we got this, you know?
Right, and then let it pass, right? Because it's an alarm, and like if a fire alarm went off in here, you know, like it's gonna sound. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta let it run its course, and then it'll turn off, and then the sounds dissipate. So.
Nice. When you were talking about that, it reminded me of like when I used to work at my last job. Breathing really, really helped me, because whenever I felt like stressed or overwhelmed, I would just like take like a deep cleansing breath in through my nose and like let it go, just as a way, like, because I could feel the stress coming, and just be like, oh, okay, we got this. Just take a moment, and then, you know, you answer the emails. Yeah. Because what some people do, I remember I got this thing that came in. I sent an email to my boss, and you know, I went up to her and I was like, oh, did you get my email? And she's like, no, I avoided it because I knew it was trouble, and I just didn't want to. And I'm like, we have to embrace it, like. But you know, my coping, so my coping skills evolved, because it's easy to avoid, but then as my neural pathways grew, my brain was like, you can't avoid this. You have way more responsibilities now. You have to like deal with the thing. Like, we can't just ignore it. Like, that's irresponsible. And so that made a lot of sense. Like, when you said, like, explain that, like, the back of my head tingled a little bit. Like, oh, that makes sense. You know, when, like, a light bulb comes on. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yoga in that way is very, very versatile. Versatile. You can do it in a chair. You can do it laying on the ground. You can do it while you're walking. You know. And so part of what I like to show people is to, you know, take away the to not be afraid of it so much, right? Or the misconceptions that they may have about yoga. And then also, like, as you're maybe trying it out, giving yourself also permission to decide that you don't like the place you tried. Right?
Shop around.
Yeah, you know, because like if you're going to see a therapist or even like a restaurant. Like if you're not going to keep going to a restaurant that you don't like because, you know, if the food is crap, you know? So like if you go to a yoga studio and you're not vibing with the people in there, you know, because some studios are not trauma informed. Some studios can be almost competitive, you know, in the sense of how they are trying to get you to pull your leg over your head.
Yeah.
And they may be trying to get you into a certain posture or a certain kind of rhythm that is their brand, let's say, and that you get to decide if that's for you or not, right? And you can leave. And you can walk out, and you always have the freedom to choose. And, you know, worst case, I'd say try some things out online and maybe start with
YouTube.
YouTube, or even like the body scans where you're just listening to someone guide you through something. That might be a good way, a good entry level, thing to try before you kind of get, in it to win it.
Yeah.
But for the folks that maybe, and I guess let's say maybe you can't find a yoga studio. Let's say there's no yoga studio by you that is doing any kind of trauma-informed anything. If you're going to do it on your own, what I suggest to people, because I have a lot of folks, I work with a lot of veterans. I'm a veteran, work with a lot of folks with PTSD who cannot really be in crowds or maybe can't be around people just yet.
Yeah.
They can't really go to the gym. Their level of anxiety or depression or et cetera is just to where they just can't.
Yeah.
The things I suggest for folks like that, particularly if somebody's like angry, or hurt by the event, my recommendation for them quite often is that they have to wear themselves out, right? Like they would be someone who would benefit from a more dynamic practice, but if they can't do that because they're not going anywhere, or they're just really yoga averse, I recommend things like, you need to maybe repaint every room in your house, right? Because painting is very meditative, but it's also very tiring.
It is.
Like cleaning out your garage, starting a garden, doing something that requires you to really be in the present moment, but will also wear you out.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to give them a different task, like reorganizing your closet, different things that they can do to try to kind of get them over that, maybe that initial hump without ever having to go into a yoga studio. But to be fair, that is actually yoga, right? Like if you're painting and you're doing all that stuff, you are creating that union, as we talked about, with the body and the mind. You're just doing it in a different way, using a different limb of yoga. You're just not using the asanas, the postures. So you can get all the effects of yoga by never, pulling your leg over your head, or never stepping on a mat, never stepping into a studio, but just by painting, let's say, or making a garden, or cleaning out your office. There's so many ways to make it accessible, and all those little things, like little muscles. They kind of just grow over time, and then you're able to add different things and take a little bit different routes. And then if you try something that doesn't work, maybe just, take the route and take a little bit of a left turn, try something different, because the thing that you tried that didn't work might work in a different season in your life, and just is not working now. So where restorative yoga for me was extremely triggering, now not so.
Yeah.
Right? So that was something that was not good for me in that season, but is good for me now in this season. I can do that now and be very relaxed, and I can feel my nervous system growing and it calming. So that's just something else I try to cue people on. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, right? Like you just you ever heard that saying?
Yeah.
Am I dating myself?
No,
okay,
no,
all right, all right.
Yeah.
Just remember that it didn't work now, but maybe it'll work later as you kind of travel down your path. But
I always say take advantage of the introductory offers at studios.
For sure.
Because that's how you're going to shop around to figure out which one works for you and which one is your vibe. Now, I've lived around in a lot of places, and this is the first place that I've been to a trauma-informed yoga studio. And so that's why I think what you do is super, super cool. Because I think we've talked about this in our intro episode, like how during teacher training they don't really touch too much on it. Like they explain like just giving the student the space. And you know, we're not therapists.
Right.
Well, some people might be in teach
Yeah,
yoga,
some people are. Yeah.
But you know, just giving them that space, but that's about it. But working here and even taking classes, just learning like, you know, like the monkey mind and understanding that people who are experiencing trauma can't really like sit for a long period of time. And so that like sticks with me in my teachings, even at the other studio I teach at, because like I can see the fidgeting, you know, and then like when I teach a restorative class and I see the fidgeting, I'll like do an adjustment, and then they stop fidgeting for that brief moment and stop, just something. And I hate talking. I'm horrible at talking, but talking something that helps with that, you know, because the background noise. So I think what you guys do here is amazing, and and anyone who works here, it's like they're gonna leave being more knowledgeable of what trauma-informed care is.
Yeah.
Because I think like some places they do privates for more of that trauma-informed, like one-on-one, but like in a studio where it's like, no, this is our focus, it's like pretty cool.
Right, yeah, and everything is trauma-informed. So if you're local, I would come to Sanford Yoga and Community Center in Sanford, North Carolina. But if you're not local, there's a lot of organizations that offer classes virtually. So Warriors at Ease, Veterans Yoga Project, Vet Yoga, Guiding Wellness Institute, and there's many others. So I would start Googling, or Warriors Path, Veterans Path, I think is another one.
And then for our YouTube channel, we'll add those links in the channel somewhere.
Yeah, so then you can find a lot of times stuff already recorded on YouTube, or you can find classes that they've uploaded to their website. And a lot of these places do, you know, free online classes. So sometimes they're even kind of live. You just like log in and you're there. So it's out there, and it's accessible if you can't find one, a practitioner necessarily local to you. But
and then it's all about like, too, just making sure you find a space that allows you to feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
I remember this one class I went to. I saw this lady from work. I think we talked about this, and we were talking, and then the instructor comes up to us and she's like, "There's no talking here." And then the entire time I'm just thinking, this instructor's a psycho. I was like, I don't like her. But I try to make sure like I make people feel welcomed, and just accept, because some places it's like no talking in the room, which is nice, like for me as an introvert, where I just want to chill and unwind after dealing with people all day. In other places, like they talk, and I just have to accept, like, all right, it's fine, like, okay.
yeah, because everybody needs something different, and I think what we try to do here, and for other people that are trying to do trauma-informed stuff in their spaces, is always letting the people know what the expectation is.
Yeah.
So by giving them, we're being trauma-informed, not because we do only slow classes or only fast classes, because we do all of those, and we do classes that are more quiet and that are maybe more like cutting up, having a good time.
Yeah.
But we put that in the description. So that way when people sign up, they know what they're getting. They know that this class is going to be a little bit more dynamic. So if you know you can't sit by yourself, this is perfect for you.
Yeah.
You know, or if we've got a quiet, gentler class, we're going to put that in the description. But then the common theme of all of our classes is that we're not going to be coming over to your mat and doing hands-on corrections. We're not going to be calling you out for something that you didn't do correctly. Like, oh, hey, Sarah, put that leg back. You know what I mean? We're going to let you be in your zone for however long the class is. We're going to give a cue. If you take it, you take it. If you don't, you don't. You know, we're going to let you, we're just going to let you be. Yeah. We're going to, be watching you to make sure that we don't think that you're going to maybe hurt yourself or something. But really, like, you're just not going to be hurting yourself.
Yeah.
the likelihood that you're going to get yourself into a position where you're going to seriously injure yourself in a yoga class is so slim that there's almost no reason. It's so slim that I've actually never had to do it. I've never had to stop a yoga class, go over to Charlie and say, all right, Charlie, you're about to die. Let me stop you right there. It's like I just give a cue. And most people have been living in their bodies their whole life. So like there's no way that I know their body better than they know their body.
Yeah.
And maybe they're moving in a way that maybe is not optimal, but it's optimal for them today based off their injuries, movement patterns, life experiences. Right. That's all they could do. And maybe it's not optimal for what I maybe think a yoga body should look like, but they are fine.
Yeah.
They are not here to look the way I want them to look or the way they should look. They're here to get out of their mind for 60, 75, 90 minutes, and I'm going to create the conditions for that to occur, and I'm going to just leave them the hell alone. For that time, you know?
Also, it's like something I've been trying to do is just empowering people to, so I always say, like, listen to your body, you know what your body needs, but also just empowering like students to talk to their instructors about what's going on with their bodies. Like, you know, like, oh, hey, I have this injury, because like I'll go up to someone if I see like they're doing something weird. I'm like, you're okay? And they're like, oh, I had like this injury, so I can't do that. And I'm like, don't do it. Stop it. Don't do it. So, you know, or I'll like make a quick adjustment. Like I'll take like their towel and just fold it under their knee for like additional support or something, or just do like change the pose for them, because yoga is not supposed to be painful. Like there's a difference between like being in pain and like being like getting a good workout in, you know, like or a deep stretch.
Yeah. Well, some people will tell you their injuries because they're just, well, for a number of reasons. One, like they may be, you know, too traumatized to even want to talk to you, but a lot of them experience chronic pain, so they're just so chronically in pain in so many places. They're like, I don't feel like having that conversation with you. It's just too much. You know, so like, like, how much time do you have? You know, so I mean, because that's like me. When I go in a yoga studio and somebody's asking me how I feel or what they think I want to work on that day, I'm just like, I don't know. You tell me. Like, I don't want to think for 60 minutes. That's it. I'm like, I don't want to think, you know, and then I'll just go into my body and figure it out. So that's why I like it when the instructor just gives different cues, because then especially if they give the same cue twice, because then my brain is like, oh, I bet that was for me. I bet I'm doing this wrong. Like, you know, like, and then I look down, I'm like, oh, is my knee above my ankle? Oh, no, that was for me. Oh, let me open those hips. Oh, okay, yeah, no, that was me. But because I'm just like, I don't want to have to think. I don't want to tell you that my hip hurts. Yeah. Or maybe I'm self-conscious that my hip hurts and I don't want the other people to hear it. Or just whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I might have so many things going on in my brain that I'm just like, I can't. The idea of having one more task is just too much. Yeah. No matter what the task is. Like, taking off my shoes may be the task, and then I'm like, I can't even do that. Like, so. Like, I have to tell you. Like, right? Yeah. Right. Like, sometimes I'm just like, forget it. I got nothing. You just tell me what to do. I'm going to do the best I can. Yeah. Don't make fun of me. Don't single me out. Yeah. Pretend like I don't exist. Yeah. Because I would prefer not to exist for 60 minutes. But I know that you know that I exist because, you know, I think the best instructors make you feel safe. Yes. You know, like where you can really just feel like they're holding the space for you. They know their stuff. They're confident on their mat. They're giving you the cues, but they're also letting you just have that moment to process, to do what you can where you're at, and then leave at the end when, you know. And then sometimes, like, I don't even want to talk to the instructor at the end. I'm just like, especially at the beginning, I'm like, I may have had the best experience in the class, but that instructor may think I hate them because I'm like, I'm not looking at you, I'm not talking to you, and I'm booking it out of here the second you cue me out of Shavasana, because I don't want to talk to nobody, I don't want to look at nobody, because I'm just so fragile. Yeah. But I'm coming back. It's not that I don't like you or none of that, but that's how it was, at least for me, earlier on in my experiences, because I was just like, I mean, I can only imagine what the instructors thought of me. They're like, this girl, she hates us, but she keeps coming back.
Well, that's such because there's like two different modes. There's instructor mode and student mode.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way. Like yesterday, I went to class and right before I taught a class, and I didn't want to talk to nobody. I just wanted to show up on my mat, and then I felt bad because I felt like I ignored this one person there, so I just made an effort to introduce myself. But yeah, I'm in the back corner. I don't don't want to talk to no one. I just want to be here. And then I remember I was getting adjustments, and I was like, damn, I'm a yoga instructor, and I'm getting adjustments. Like, people probably think I'm horrible. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, can I, like, it was so hot. It was so hot. And I had like this, I had probably like a sip of water left, and I ended up just leaving to fill up my water. And I was like, man, I don't know if I should have done that. I'm an instructor. And then I was like, girl, you were hot and thirsty. It's okay. Yeah.
And then it gives them permission to do the same.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of students did that afterwards. Like, I left and got water.
See, look at that. That's perfect. You're amazing.
Yeah, but there's like 2 different modes. It's just like you, and that's okay, because like you don't need to socialize to be a good yogi. You don't need
for sure.
You don't need to be like you said, flexible, have your legs over your head, or bubbly, or zen, to be a good yogi. You just have to show up wherever that is for you.
Yeah. I always just say you just got to be able to breathe.
Yes, that is a good requirement.
I feel like if you got that down, then you're alive.
Yes.
You made it through that hurdle. Then you can do yoga if you so choose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God, that is so true. Because the best, you did it right when you leave feeling like less heavy than you did coming in.
Yeah, and the other fun thing, sorry, you just had me think of something else. You actually get all the benefits from yoga by actually not even ever doing any of the poses. So you can get the benefit by visualizing them. So that's another fun, interesting thing too. Like, because my husband Mike, when he gets injured, he'll still want to do yoga. So he'll come to my class and he'll literally just lay there on his back the entire time. But as I'm cueing, he's just visualizing himself doing it, and he's actually growing his nervous system just by doing that. So people could even do that,
cool.
you can because you can actually create those neural pathways. Or if laying on the ground is uncomfortable, you could just sit in a chair. We have chairs. Most studios have chairs, but you can just sit there, and because then again, that's bringing you very acutely into the present moment. You're visualizing it. And your body doesn't actually know the difference, which is an interesting thing too. It doesn't. So we'll do a fun little exercise to show you. So I want you to just right now, I just want you to think about a lemon.
Live lemon or just a fruit lemon?
A fruit lemon, right? And really start to visualize it. Visualize all the little indentions on the lemon, like the little butt of the lemon where you plucked off the tree, all that kind of stuff. And then I want you to maybe visualize like slicing the lemon open, right? Maybe cutting off a piece, right? And you can kind of see all the little juices and the little veins inside of the lemon, right? Now I want you to kind of maybe visualize yourself biting into that lemon, right? So as you're biting into that lemon, are you noticing anything change in your mouth at the
sour.
moment? Yeah. But is your mouth starting to salivate a little bit as you're visualizing the lemon and biting into it?
A little bit, yeah. I just as soon as you said imagine biting it, my mouth was just like
yeah.
But then I was thinking, is it like one of those Swedish sour lemons? Like maybe that would be a little bit better, and I started to salivate. Yeah.
So you can actually cue you haven't actually had something that would require you to rinse the palate yet, but you visualize yourself into a sense to where now, and you can do that maybe with other foods that you prefer, that you might actually salivate over, but a lemon is kind of like a low bar because most people are like, making that face when they're when they're like, I'm going to bite into a lemon. So your body's already starting to produce chemicals just based off your thoughts in that moment about a lemon. And so that same thing happens on the yoga mat as your nervous system grows just by visualizing the different postures and, doing that in a kind, loving manner in your mind's eye as you're walking yourself through it. But
and we talked a lot about the different, like, incorporating yoga into our practice and growing the neural pathways. I was gonna say, like, give an example, because we talked about it a little bit, but give an example of how someone who is, like, I don't want to say trauma recovery, but how can someone incorporate, like, the growing of the neural pathways into, like, a healthy coping mechanism?
There's a couple of, like, tricks, so to speak. So if somebody who's experienced a lot of trauma will probably be living in fight or flight all of the time, right? And they're just doing that, and it's become so natural for them that they don't even know.
Yeah.
But a way to kind of turn off the fight or flight and to begin to reset your nervous system is essentially to get upside down, is to get into an inversion of some kind. But some of the most accessible ways to do that sometimes is just to lay with your legs up the wall. So if you're laying flat, you can lay flat on your back, on your bed, or on your couch, and just putting your legs up. You can let your legs rest up against the wall. You can lay on the floor and let your legs rest over the couch.
Yeah, like on a chair or something.
Yeah, things like that to kind of get you up. If you're able to, to take it a step further, it's ideal to get your hips over your heart. So if you're familiar with bridge pose, lifting up your hips off the ground, taking a block, putting it underneath your sits bones to lift your hips up. You can even, if you're using the wall, you can use you can push on the wall with your feet to push your hips up a little bit higher. You can get into shoulder stand or plow, but any way to where you're able to get your hips over your heart, or if you're even laying in your bed, putting some pillows underneath your hips to get your hips up higher, just hips up over the heart. If you're able to do that and you're able to sit there for, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes, that's going to reset your nervous system, turn off your fight or flight. And it's great for people who have insomnia and have trouble sleeping, getting in that position before bed, getting into that position in bed, right? Getting those hips up, or really any time they're starting to feel heightened, because it's taking that away. It's sending all the blood back to your heart, right? Because when you're in fight or flight, everything is going in the opposite direction, right?
Yeah, and you want it to come back.
So now we're bringing it back, and you're just having to center. And then, like, if you're in that position, but the monkey is like with the cymbals, the other thing I suggest to people is to do what I call box breathing. And you just inhale to the count of 4. You hold your breath to the count of 4. You exhale to the count of 4. And then you stay breathless to the count of 4. So you just kind of maybe visualize a box going up, over, down, over. And then it just gives yourself something to think about. Yeah. Or you can count backwards, 50 to 1. But just giving yourself something, giving your mind something to do for just 3 to 5 minutes. Just 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to box breathe 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to count backwards from 100. 3 to 5 minutes, I'm just going to think about my breath. 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to think about the different parts of my body. Just bringing my awareness to my foot, bringing my awareness to my leg. Just keeping the thoughts very gentle and neutral.
Yeah.
But that's where I would have people start, because it's easy, it's accessible, and it's really the most effective.
And it's free.
And it's free, right? Like, you probably have all those tools at home in some way, shape, or form.
You do. Yeah. You do. Like, I like the legs up the wall. At my last job, I would show people that and press on their feet. But I would do that for myself too. Like, if I was having a day where everything felt super overwhelming, because like, you're getting notifications and emails and text messages and phone calls, and it's just like too much. I would close my office door. Then I put my legs up on a chair and just lay there and like breathe. And it's just like, it's a moment to like, everything's coming back. And it felt calming. And I think the more and more like you incorporate these things, like those neural pathways, like, yeah, the monkey mind is like bleeping or whatever, but your body is going to know, okay, this is happening. This is what we need to do right now. Like, as the neural pathways grow, right?
Yeah. And think of it as a muscle that you need to make stronger, and not to be discouraged. You know, like, oh, that only made me feel better for 10 minutes. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe next time it'll make you feel better for 20.
Yeah.
You know, so giving yourself just kindness and compassion, and not thinking of any of these things as like, well, Lindsay said, you know, blah, 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 you know, this needs to work, or it didn't work, you know, and I'm like, no, it probably worked, but just not for long. Let's build that muscle, you know, and see if we can get it to grow stronger over time.
And another thing too probably is just rewiring like how we talk to ourselves, like in these situations. Like, instead of like, if something didn't go right, saying like, oh, you suck, you're a failure, being like, you know what, this is a lesson. Like, what can I learn? What do I need to do to be better? Or, you know, if you get like a whole bunch of taskers and it's like, oh my God, this sucks, just be like, you know what, we're gonna get through this. You know, like, we've been here before. Just take a moment. It's gonna be okay. You know, just reminding, like, teaching ourselves how to be nice to each other, because does that help? Like, with the traumatic, I don't want to say traumatic mind, but someone who's experiencing trauma.
Yeah, and it works, to be fair, with everyone, because I think, I mean, I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say most people are pretty hard on themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you've experienced trauma or not.
Yeah.
But maybe when you're in that loop, being hard on yourself, starting to think about what would you say to the person you care about the most.
Yeah.
You know, because you really should be one of the people you care about the most, because you're the one driving this train so that you can essentially live every day. And so those are some things to, like, as another reframe, you know, instead of just being hard on yourself because you can, you know, think about the person that you care about the most and be like, well, what would I tell that human if they were in my experience right now?
Yeah.
Like, that conversation would be completely different. You know, like, the person that comes to my mind is always like my baby sister. What would I tell my baby sister? I'd be like, oh no, I'd be cheering her on, giving her all the high fives. I would never in a moment talk to my baby sister the way my monkey mind talks to me about, oh no. And if somebody talked to my baby sister the way my monkey mind talks to me, I'd knock the crap out of them. So I always think about that. I'm like, would I tell my little Meggie that? I'm like, nope, sure not. Let me change it. It's not good enough for my baby sister. It ain't good enough for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. If it's not good enough for my baby sister,
then you know.
I love that. I think, because I'm the youngest, I think, like, you know, what would I say to, like, my best friend? Or, like, treat yourself how you treat others.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
The ones you love.
Yeah,
not your enemies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why I always say pick the person you care about the most. And maybe you don't care about people, but you might care about an animal or a plant or something.
Okay.
Most people care about something.
Yeah.
You know, they've got something that they care about very, very deeply. And then just go to that place, whether it's your dog, your cat, your bird. It don't even matter.
This is going to sound super corny, but I feel like my neural pathways have grown a little bit after this conversation.
Aww, yay! Get it, queen.
Yay. Is there anything else on the subject of just trauma and yoga and how to manage or create, like, a good self-care practice that you want to touch on?
No, I think just like in closing, just in closing, just try to maybe establish a routine, and let that routine let it be short to start. Let it be super short, because you know, if you make it too long, it'll just be another reason to beat yourself up for failing.
What's like a good, like, length, like, when you say super short, like a minute, 5 minutes?
I'd say like 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
Think about trying to regrow your nervous system 5 to 7 minutes every day.
Nice.
Just once a day. Find 5 to 7 minutes, and maybe that's going legs up the wall, 5 to 7 minutes. Maybe that's breathing. Maybe that's counting back from 50. Whatever that looks like for you.
Painting.
Yeah, painting, you know.
Coloring. I love an adult coloring book.
Just take, yeah.
Yeah.
And it can just be that short. And if you schedule that time with yourself, consistently, over time you can grow the time or change the activity, kind of move it in a different direction. But just giving yourself that space and giving yourself pats on the back when you do it. Good job, we did it, high five, we did our 5 to 7 minutes.
Just like a self-high five.
Yeah, and you'll be surprised at how quickly it all starts to kind of come together into work, but just by doing it consistently, even if it is it can be very effective even in a short amount of time.
For people that are busy or pretty all over the place, do you recommend scheduling that time each and every day, put a reminder in their phone or add it to their planner?
Yeah, that could be helpful for some folks.
Yeah.
Trying to do it at the same time every day could be helpful. But some people schedule, I'm a veteran. It's like being in the Army, you're never in control of anything ever.
Yeah.
So scheduling was, can be a nightmare for some, when you're in such a chaotic environment. So sometimes you just got to get it where you can. So if you're in that environment where you have absolutely no control over your day-to-day ever, what I like to do is I just like to put a little box that I check. You know what I'm saying? Did I do it today?
Yeah.
And just whenever I figured out when that was,
okay,
I check that box or give myself a sticker or I cross it off my to-do list.
Ooh,
Does that make sense? Because some people love to cross the thing off the to-do list. Because sometimes it's just for the people that need to schedule or have the luxury to schedule, because I think that can be a luxury to a lot of folks. Schedule it. But for everybody else, add it to the list and then cross it off or give yourself a sticker whenever you're able to find it. And I find that, and especially if you're a mom, or a dad who's providing primary care to the little humans.
Yeah.
I find that's hard too, right? How do you find time when you got 8 screaming kids running all over the place? Are y'all gonna take a nap at the same time, or I don't know. In some instances, it's impossible to find consistency, and so consistency can look different. It can just be checking it off the list.
That is a good point. Yeah, just check it off the list when you have the time, and or give yourself a sticker when you did it.
Yeah, because you'll find the time. You'll find 5 to 7 minutes at some point, even if it's right before you collapse into bed.
Or right when you wake up in the morning, or
right
in between.
Yeah, you'll find it. It just, who knows when that will be.
Yeah, because we do that for things did we drink water today? Or, did we pee today?
Right, yeah.
So you can find the time to, did we meditate today? Or did we, do legs up the wall? Did we do our self-care today? Yeah. Even though, sometimes you forget to eat, but it's okay.
But you remember eventually. Yeah. Because eventually you're
your stomach's screaming, or you feel lightheaded. And
you're something's going on.
Yeah. So just incorporating, I feel a little squirrely right now, or my monkey mind is let's give it something to do real quick. Yeah. Nice. Well, Lindsay, is there anything you want to, as we come to the end of this lovely podcast, is there anything you want to promote or?
No, I think just go to Sanford Yoga and Community Center if you want to learn. SanfordYogaandCommunityCenter.com if you want to learn more about what we do here.
Yes.
And we'll post some links to other places to where you can find stuff virtually in your area. But just keep being awesome and give yourself a hug and try new things, and worst case, just talk about it.
I was going to give myself a hug.
Like that?
Alrighty, so that is Let's Talk. On that note, that was Let's Talk About It with Lindsay Knapp.
Yay! Annalise Williams.
And me, yes. Thank you. That was beautiful.